You're listening to the Becoming More Me podcast with me, Theresa Lear Levine. You're already enough, but if you're anything like me, you thrive when you're stretching, creating, and aligning with the person you feel called to be, and creating greater calm, clarity, and confidence in your life, as well as room for pleasure and expansion. Through amazing stories, conversations, and offerings, this podcast is here to inspire and support you. Get ready to release the negative, reinforce the positive, and elevate our consciousness and vibe together as we tap into our limitless potential to transform and grow. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Becoming More Me. I'm really excited to introduce you today to my guest, Whitney Walker. Whitney is a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in addiction, eating disorders, trauma, and spirituality. She also works as a recovery coach and spiritual guide. She has a private practice in the California Bay Area where she sees clients, couples, and families. Now, prior to that, she was in clinic community settings and has extensive recovery experience, including acting as the clinical manager of Wellness Retreat Community Center's intensive outpatient program. Whitney incorporates spiritual concepts into her work, including the return of the divine feminine to our world and moving from a place of fear to love, releasing self-destruction and rejection to embrace unconditional self-love and acceptance. These ideas form the concept of Women Waken, which is the name of her business and vision for the future. Whitney's also created the Women Waken podcast, on which I had the pleasure of being a guest earlier this spring. I was on episode 101 not too long ago, and her podcast is a holistic guide to wellness and abundant self-love. Whitney also has an accompanying YouTube channel, so it's definitely worth checking those out, and I'll be sure to include those links in the show notes. Welcome, Whitney. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much, Theresa. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have everybody get to know you better because I've really enjoyed following along with you and getting to know you from being on your show. So I'd love it if you could just start by telling us a little bit about you, like day-to-day you, what you enjoy doing outside of your work and everything else.
Yeah, well, I was just kind of giving you an update, Theresa, since we recorded your episode for my podcast in April. I am currently a bit of a nomad. I'm living in Bend, Oregon, which is where I sort of landed after leaving the Bay Area 2 years ago, October 2021, and traveled all over the country. And now I'm getting back on the road. So needless to say, travel is a big part of my life, my day-to-day life, and my pursuits is I love to explore. I love to follow my intuition and guidance. That's a big part of my practice, and sort of what makes it a lot of the idea of Women Waken is tapping more into our intuition, guidance, sort of freeing ourselves from a lot of the concepts and rules that we believe that we have to follow or live by, and really more tapping into what I would say is our soul and our soul's path. So that's sort of what I try to do on a day-to-day basis, the best that I can. But I'm here doing this work because in a large part, I have not been able to do that a lot of my life. I'm in recovery from addiction to meds and alcohol and all sorts of things, and eating disorder, because I had a lot of trauma and grief around trying to accept who I was and things that happened to me and things that occurred in my life that I felt were not aligned with what I thought my life would be like or look like. And so, as you spoke to in my intro, being able to make peace with who we are and not have conditions around how we can accept ourselves is truly enables us to have a new experience of life where it doesn't feel like we're chained and bound by the things that have happened to us, the conditions that we live in, but that we are able to embrace and enjoy ourselves just as we are.
Oh, I love that. I love all of that. And Being a nomad, I love hearing from people that are in that kind of journey because I've never really had the opportunity to do that. And I think that's got to be really cool in a lot of ways, but I'm sure it also brings up some uncertainty, some fear, and some need to really trust on in your intuition and everything else as you do it. Are you excited about where life is taking you right now?
I am excited. This time, however, I mean, again, I was kind of just sharing this with you, but I was making plans to stay put. I was going to kind of retire from the game, if you will, and stay in Bend because Bend, Oregon is a fantastic place. If anybody is looking for a beautiful place to visit, or if you're looking for a place to relocate, don't tell anybody I sent you because there's way too many people coming to Bend, but it's gorgeous. And as soon as I put that idea out there, I just got a strong message through meditation and just other signs and symbols that it was not for my highest good to stay here. For what I was looking for was saying, you're not going to find it here. And that there was more growth to be done. So now I'm really kind of doing what I would call a surrender experiment, which is also the name of a fabulous book by a name Michael Singer, who wrote the
I've
book.
read it. It's a good one.
Yes, The Untethered Soul.
Yes.
Fantastic book. And it really inspired me, the idea of what would happen if you let go of trying to control and plan everything that's going to happen and just let life show up and let things come to you. I'm a Virgo ×3. I have a Virgo stellium in my chart. And Virgos are notorious for being planners and schedulers and kind of controlling and liking everything to have order and be nice and neat and tidy.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to let go because I usually have my life planned out to the T for the next few months, but I'm just going to go with it. And other things are changing in my life. My work is fluctuating. So you asked if I was scared. I am a little bit because I don't know what it's going to look like. And I don't know that there's anything for me. Again, as I was saying to you before, the worst that can happen is I get to go out and see the beautiful fall leaves on the East Coast, which is where I'm being drawn to. I've hit 35 of the 50 states now in my travels. So I'll get to wrap up almost all the way there. I still have Alaska to go see.
Nice.
But so it'll be an adventure. But it is a bit scary because I am traveling alone and I've done it before, but there's always unexpected things, which is fun, which I love that aspect of it. But there isn't a lot of security or assurance that things will go a certain way, but I'm going to try it, see what happens.
The interesting thing is that we don't really have that if we stay put either. It's just we like to forget that, like I was telling you right before we hopped on, like we just had like lightning strike 12 feet from our house this week. Like you just never know here in the security of where we think we're safe, what's going to happen next or what's coming. So I love that you're leaning into it and going with it, especially as such a strong Virgo type, because I always find things go so much better when I just allow the flow to happen instead of trying to turn my canoe upstream and paddle against it all. But yet that seems to be the way so many of us are programmed to adapt, react, and go with things.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is.
So what do you think, like what are some of your favorite ways to begin, like when you're dealing with like the trauma and all the other things that you've been through or that your clients mainly go through? Like what are your favorite ways to begin like healing and aligning and bringing forth our authentic selves so that we can really flourish?
Yeah. Well, I often say that the very first step is just awareness or identifying, right? So we can't, even if it's something as small as a twisted ankle, right? We can't address it until we identify it, right? We might have, tweaked our ankle, but then we try to go for our 5-mile run the next day and we're like, oh, there's something wrong here. And if we try to just push through it and don't notice that there's something wrong there, then we're going to just exacerbate and increase the issue. So it's that sort of thing where it's like, because we can it's easy to push through in our day-to-day lives that we can keep very full and busy to not address things and just say, well, I have this lingering sense of anxiety or depression or angst, whatever it might be, but I don't want to go there because I don't want to have to look at it. And so people, really, I would say the majority of people, you and I are in the healing profession. So we're surrounded by people who are seekers and aware, but many people choose not to be aware. So they live their whole life just pushing things down, ignoring that twisted ankle that's going to become this whole mess of a problem because they just keep running on it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And I also know that as somebody who tries to be really aware and conscious and is in this community, I have trouble with it still myself. So there's the humanness aspect of it where I think every single one of us needs like that daily or hourly or whatever reminder just to kind of tune back in.
To check, yeah, that tuning in. And that I could also say is the central part of my work, is that going in, right? Noticing that there is a whole infinite being within each of us that is much, much bigger than the physical experience that we're having in this life, right? The
Yeah.
physical being was born into this lifetime and lived through it. There's something infinite, but also wholly and completely unconditional love and acceptable, no matter how we look, no matter what we've done, no matter, what we've achieved, there's that perfection. And I really do this work because I'm honestly just fascinated by the fact that we minimize that so much. Right. And that I myself, I've spent my whole life desperately wanting to fit the bill in terms of how I looked, how I was received, how much I achieved, and gave about this much credit, very small amount, to my essence, my heart, my soul. That was sort of like, yeah, big deal. Who cares? Because it's not impressive. And, the more that I've grown on my own healing journey and spiritual journey, I just am so fascinated by that question of why do we turn away from that which is greater and more powerful and more valuable than anything in the physical realm or any sort of achievement could measure up to. So, yeah, I want to inspire people to begin that journey, but I'm a big believer that we come to it in our own time. Even in, I'm talking about lifetimes and stuff here. So some people may not resonate with that, but I just am a believer in
I do.
multiple lives. And okay.
It's the only thing that keeps me from falling into a place of time scarcity.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
oh, I've got plenty. Maybe I'll figure it out this time. Maybe I won't, but there's always more time.
Yes, always more time, always more time. And that's what I was kind of going to say, is that some people aren't ready, even they'll live a full lifetime never really turning in. But when you get that awareness, it's like your soul is ready. Your soul is showing, or you're kind of meeting up with your soul is what it really is. And you're saying, I'm ready to look at this bigger picture. So that's why I say that awareness is the first part, and to be so gentle with the healing process, because there's a quote that I love. It's by Shakespeare, something to the effect of, I feel for the people who don't have patience, because what wound does heal but by degrees. So, even the things that we have come to struggle so much with, we can't just like fling it out the window, right? We have to acknowledge that it's a habit that we've created over time, and it's going to take time to undo that. And that's sort of the emotional healing. That's the way it works, is first you see it and you say, okay. And to your point, the way that we identify healing is we notice reactions. Reactions are a beautiful gift that are not so much fun sometimes, but that are really like almost like this like epicenter of like, here's an issue, here's some unresolved pain that you're not addressing. Let's say we're really reactive when we feel slighted, right? If we feel disrespected and we just like blow up, there's something there where maybe we felt that we were not considered, that we were not valued for who we were. And so when people disrespect us, we have an over exaggerated response to it. So those are all ways that we can identify what might be in there that needs to heal.
Do you have a favorite method or way of looking inward and getting aware? Even like maybe even with the story that you told me about, like how you felt that calling to come out east, like was there a way that you were connected to that awareness or that universal guidance?
Yeah. Well, my practice is every morning I do a meditation. I do it lying down, and I use crystals. So I put them on like all my chakras. Just to, if I mean, even if you don't believe in crystals, there's something in the awareness of that you're taking the time to be mindful of these centers, energy centers in your body, right?
I'm with you.
And then I see yours in the back.
No, I don't believe in crystals at all. No.
You're like,
They're everywhere. And so much of my work is based around how our chakras work and the balancing of them and the unblocking of them and everything else. So
yeah, exactly. So I take that time every morning to check in, and I do a body scan. And that's when those messages come up where I'm just kind of like checking in with myself. And suddenly just this, I mean, sometimes it sounds as clear as day, like someone's talking to me, but just a message, or even just like a sense, right? Of like, ooh, there's something that I need to tap into or look into. But if we do not make time for that to go within, then again, it's really easy to just keep pushing through. So for me, it's that calm stillness. Some people do meditation sitting up. That's powerful too, because I do find when I sit up that you can feel more of the energy in your body. Like I will often get sort of like pressure in different spots when I feel like it needs attention, right? Like if it's in your throat, shows there can be a blockage, or like in your stomach. But when I lie down is when I feel most still. And that's when I feel like I'm able to receive. But the only thing that matters is what works for you. Some people, they don't want meditation. It's too hard for them to sit. They feel like they're just full with thoughts in their head, which, believe me, I feel that I have most of the time. It's just that running,
This
But
ADHD brain had a really hard time with meditation for a long time. I think that's probably why I got into doing EFT tapping, because for me, that's active meditation.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. And that's the thing, is that meditation can absolutely be active. I love walking meditation. Sometimes I get my greatest guidance by going through for a nature walk.
Yeah.
And I'm moving.
Meditating with my eyes open is also better for me, because it seems like once I close my eyes, I either feel like I'm going to fall asleep, or the stuff just starts running in my head with my eyes closed. So
totally. And that's okay.
walking
That's great.
is beautiful.
Whatever works.
It is.
Yeah. And
I think it was more, for me, it was more the judgment I would put on myself back when I would try to do meditation and just clear my head. And once I was able to release that judgment, then I didn't really care about, the whole idea of meditation, right, is we get distracted and we come back. We keep coming back. We just keep coming back. So yes, keep returning. So yeah, that's awesome. And I love that we've already kind of like dipped our toes into the woo side of things, because I love that you and I share that, and are also like very credible experts, and very steeped in, like you're a licensed practitioner and therapist, and yet I know you have a big interest in like tarot and things like that. So how do you work all of that into therapy?
Well, so I have often pulled oracle or tarot cards for clients. I definitely allow them to kind of inquire about it. Some are very attuned. A lot of people will find their way to me to work with me, who are more spiritually inclined, who have started on their journey, or who are ready to. And I can kind of sense that, right? Intuition tells me. But I definitely have other clients, especially when I deal with addiction clients and the like, is that they're still really in just sort of getting out of that, because addiction ultimately is really tied into the ego, right? You're tied into an egoic way of trying to handle pain and regret and disappointment and all these things. So it takes a while to kind of open up to the idea that there's something else besides just having our needs met, right? So with those type of clients, usually they're not often ready. So it's not every client that I'm just going to pull out the cards for if they're not aligned with it or not feeling it. But in terms of clients who are on board for it, it's a wonderful thing to bring in when maybe the client doesn't have words for what they're feeling or words to express what they're needing. And so we can take a moment to say, well, would you want to check in with some cards, just see what energies are coming up for you? What kind of messages seem to be coming through? Because it's really, what I find profound about tarot is someone who doesn't seem to be able to explain or know what's really going on. I'll pull a few cards and share the messages coming through, and they'll say, oh my gosh, that's so crazy, because I actually have been feeling this way lately. And it kind of like opens up this channel that we can't, because it's going from your head to your heart, right? It's going from the thinking brain into the feeling, intuitive heart center. Yeah. And it almost seems like it gives people permission sometimes to say things or hear things that they can't say themselves, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah, I love that way of explaining it. That makes it, I think, a lot clearer to people who maybe haven't dabbled in it before, like the importance of it and the value of into something like that, if maybe you haven't done it before. So I know that you have a big interest also in, unconditional self-acceptance and things like that, as far as they relate to our inner peace. What have been the best ways that you've found to cultivate that?
Well, that's a big one. It's very, here are the things that I find the greatest hangups to unconditional love is, I think, regret, right? Things from our past where we feel like if we had just done something differently, then it would be so much easier to love ourselves, right? If we hadn't really messed this thing up or made this really poor decision, then it would be easier to love. So, some of the ways that I found to move more into unconditional love is to recognize that there were no wrong choices, that there is not possible to make mistakes at the soul level, is what I've come to recognize. And it's amazing, Theresa, I'm sure you've seen this, but certain concepts that can be introduced. This is why I really value the spoken word on podcasts, even the written word, various mediums where people share ideas, because something will find its way into your ears and into your heart that will, it's almost like it unlocks something inside of you. And that's been my journey to unconditional love. It hasn't been like this, sudden overnight thing. It's been these little things one by one that made me, ultimately what it says is, oh, maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay that this happened. Maybe it's okay that I am who I am just as I am, and that nothing had to be any different. And that there was a reason and a purpose for every single choice and decision and twist and turn and experience that I've had in my life.
Right.
That shift in belief is, again, I feel like the key that unlocks the chains that keep us from unconditional love. Because the truth is that when we're sitting here in this moment, that's all we have. And if we can say, I accept this moment fully, completely, perfectly, then that's all you need. That's unconditional love right there. It's just a matter of doing that every moment going forward.
Right. It's just like the consciousness and the awareness. It's like we go in and out of it. And I think some people can get caught up in thinking that it's like a before and after story. Like back then I didn't have self-love and acceptance. Now I do. And somehow I'm going to stay in that place. But it doesn't really work that way. We always are going to have things that are going to challenge it and make us, like the meditation, return. So always that work in progress. And how do you like to work like the divine feminine into what you do? I know that's another thing that you and I are both passionate about.
Yeah. Well, to me, the divine feminine is just the representation of our experience of source. We want to call it source, God, the universe, in this physical lifetime. Yeah. So it's basically our communing moments with that. We're very busy here, right? We wouldn't have come here if we didn't want to have the worldly experience of creation and communing with other human beings, but also having conflict and, but also agreement and working with and collaborating with others. It's a joyous, beautiful thing. Doesn't always feel that way, but it really is ultimately. However, the moments where we feel a sense of what is my truth? Who am I? What is my essence? What is my soul come to do? Those moments, I believe, can truly only be found in those quiet, still moments. And to me, that's when we're communing with what I would call the divine feminine, which is that which wants us to honor and see ourselves as we truly are. Not by, again, this moment to moment human experience where, okay, today I did well, tomorrow, yesterday I did badly because I messed it. It's recognizing that, again, we're unconditional beings, that we are always doing perfectly, phenomenally in every moment. So it's a means of connecting with almost that, Mother Earth, motherly energy that loves us, that has a sense that, again, no matter what you do, you are loved, you are accepted, that you are beautiful and perfect just as you are. Yeah. So also, it's like the gentleness of life, right? Like so much of life can feel very heavy and dense. The divine and feminine is that which is light, that which is ultimate awareness, right? So it's the part of us that knows much more than we think we do. So that's where the intuition, our psychic abilities come in, is when we connect with our divine feminine power, I would say, is that, it's really hard not to use all the measuring sticks that we're given in our society, right? Especially on stuff like social media, where it's like, well, that person has a lot of followers or that person has a lot of likes. But it's like, well, okay, strip all those things away. And who are you? What do you have? Like, what's going on in here? That's the divine. It's like, wow, well, I actually am very passionate and driven. Like, ooh, we'll feel into that. Well, I actually am very attuned to other people's feelings. I often get clairvoyant messages. Those are all inherent gifts that we don't need anything outside of ourselves to hone and use, right? So to me, that's playing with our divine feminine, where we're like, if everything was taken away from me and all I had was me, what would I feel? What would I be? And what would I be utilizing in terms of natural innate gifts and love? Ultimately, it's that loving feeling.
Yeah. Oh, I love all of that. So you said how, we are these unconditional beings, totally true. And so we have these conditional mindsets.
Yes.
How does that lead us into problems, like with the things that you deal with, like addiction and seeking worth and validation and all that stuff that we're looking for outside of ourselves, the social media stuff and all that?
Yeah. Well, it's the source of all of our, quote unquote problems, in that, because what conditionality is really saying is that I need this to be this, which is the ultimate falsehood of existence. Truly. Existence itself is an infinite thing that is unconditional, just purely by nature. And we're given this unique experience of feeling like we are conditional beings we have to earn a living. We have to earn notoriety. We have to earn respect. We have to earn value. And I think that is maybe the biggest thing, is that we are conditionally lovable and of value. I think that's what gets us the most. When we don't believe that we are lovable, we will try to seek out love in any means possible. Because if we are at our nature love, then if we feel that we are not what we're naturally meant to be, we feel completely disconnected from life itself, or source, whatever you want to call it. And that's when people get stuck in addiction, because that is such a uncomfortable, unnatural feeling, right? To feel that we are separate from that which we are innately, because maybe we feel like, we're not impressive enough. We're not smart enough. We haven't achieved enough, that we were born into this world in a position that's not of status, and therefore we just don't matter. There's so many things in this life that enable us to think that we don't matter, because that's all we do all day is people, oh, this person matters a lot. This person doesn't matter at all. This person is very impressive. This person is worthless.
Where do I fit in?
And from the time we're born, we're kind of like, well, dang, this is like musical chairs. I just hope that I don't, that I get a seat in the worthy table and I don't end up on the outskirts. So when we feel that we have ended up without a seat at the table of worthiness and love, we feel void, and therefore we're going to try to fill that. And that's when we turn to drugs or anything to make us feel good, or feel that we can, find peace or find some comfort in that discomfort.
Right.
So, but conditionality is just so broad, and unfortunately it makes up the majority of the terms that we've chosen to live our lives, right? In every way.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just a big thing. And I really equate it with really just a misconception that we haven't figured out yet. And I think, again, that's why people like you and I and more people are being drawn to this work as healers, awakeners, as people who are really assisting others in their spiritual journey, because I truly believe that in decades, centuries to come, the way that we live now will almost be like a fable of like, can you believe that humans used to think that we had to earn our worth and living? That we mostly, because it's like we think that have a very small amount of goodness, and the rest of us is not good and not lovable, not worthy. It's crazy, really.
I always wonder where we're headed. I was actually just thinking about it the other day, because I'm like, wow, we've come so far from, where we were 50, 100, however many years ago. And I'm like, where are we going to be in like 50 or 200 years? Like, what's going to be that big thing that we're looking back going, like you just said, like, can you believe we used to do that? And I'm definitely curious to see what it is.
I think we might hit an even lower bottom. It's possible, because it takes what it takes, right? I always liken it to addiction, where you're not done until you're done. You have to really just echo off the bottom before sometimes you're ready to reclaim yourself, right? Like the phoenix rising from the ashes. It doesn't happen until you're totally and completely defeated. And you don't have to look around our world very long to see that nothing is really working for us. And we're basically in the final states of denial, where we're like, no, it's fine. It's fine that our political system, our healthcare system, our education system, our finance system don't work. It's fine. We'll just keep trying to make these broken down, dysfunctional machines work. They don't work. They're not aligned with the human soul. They're not aligned with the human, nature. They don't serve everybody. It's not working, but we're in denial. When it gets bad enough, we'll finally be willing to say and humble ourselves and say, this isn't working. Yeah. We have to actually completely recreate, in a lot of ways, everything that we do. Yeah. And that's when it's going to get good and get very fascinating. And that's when we will finally, I believe, I don't know why this term's coming to me. I'm not personally religious, but like the Garden of Eden, that Earth was meant to be. We're meant to be having a good time. If there's any message that I like to leave with, it's we're meant to be having a good time here, exploring ourselves, exploring the joy of emotions and human connection and Earth and all of this. But most of us are not having a good time because of conditionality. We all live in chains of conditionality. And until we break free from those, it's going to continue to be a struggle. rather than a joyous celebration.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think this world actually is like totally in need of right now?
Um, Whew, that's a big question. I think
Like if we could keep
kindness.
ourselves from hitting rock bottom and we could just like make a choice and bounce back right now, like what do you think would fix it?
I think kindness.
Yeah.
I'll share this. It's kind of an odd thing, but I'll share it anyways. I had this meditation once where it was almost like beings from another dimension, planet, whatever you want to call it, were like reaching out to me. And what they said was kindness is like the muscle relaxer for the human soul, and that we are all right now very reactive because none of us feel safe in terms of that we won't be attacked or hurt or harmed because of our beliefs. But if we've all experienced this, when you're frustrated with someone and they respond not in anger, but in kindness, and they say, I hear that you're frustrated. And they express empathy. Kindness almost melts you. And you're like,
It disarms you.
it disarms you. That's what it is. It disarms you. And so in my meditation, it said, kindness is the key for you all to connect and truly grow together rather than push apart. And
Yeah.
that's what felt very profound because I mean, unfortunately, it's this strange thing where it's like people feel like they're being more they're having more innovative ideas about how we can have equality and all these different things, but it's not very based in kindness. It's almost based in like trying to dictate and everyone's telling each other, well, you're wrong, I'm right. You're wrong, I'm right. No one's giving each other the chance to disarm. We're
Yeah,
all
it
up in
goes back to
arms.
the ego that's at the heart of all the issues with the addiction and everything else, instead of like kindness goes hand in hand with what we are at a source level, like love.
Yes, absolutely. And our innate nature can come through, which our nature is love. And so ultimately all we want to do is connect with one another because we are all one. We all are one another. There's no difference between you and I and any other being. Again, we're having this unique experience where we think there is, right? There's me and then there's you. But when kindness is what takes away that separation and brings us back. And that is when we will remember who we truly are and be able to find true solutions, not just egoic solutions, which are follow my idea and do what I say is right, because again, I'm right, you're wrong. So I think kindness is what's going to get us there. But it takes what it takes because we don't disarm until we've lost just all hope, ultimately, really, sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like we're pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why, like, when I'm having a rough day, I'm like, just hang in there. Cause I don't know, to me, this is like, I don't know the right analogy, but it's, like Game of Thrones times, like we're fighting for our lives, truly. Like the greatest, you can go see any Marvel movie you want to, but the real heroic battle is happening right here because we are truly fighting for our souls right now. Because what the world right now wants to deny our soul and our connection. But we are, those of us who feel called are trying to bring awareness and kindness to say, can we do this together? Can we try a different way? Because this way we're doing things isn't working.
Oh, I love that. I love everything about this conversation. Thank you. It was a perfect, wonderful answer to a really big, difficult question. So tell me, where can people find out more about what you're doing, how to work with you, or even just follow along and see all your fun woo-woo things that you're doing?
Yeah. Well, the best way to connect with me is on Instagram. That's where you can just add me on Instagram. You can see a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. And then also, if anybody's listening, if they DM me through Instagram, I'm happy to pull a few cards for you. I love just connecting with, people who have found me, who have, anybody in my audience. So yeah, that's the best way. But then I also have my podcast, Women Waken, which you were a lovely guest on, which I also have to give you a shout out because, you asked earlier about healing and returning to yourself. And EFT, which is a lot of focus of your work, is such a profound and beautiful way to do that, because that's another way that I found in my daily life when I get pulled back into those egoic fears of, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, or I made this mistake. It's if returning to our divine feminine takes certain tools. Sometimes we get caught up. So I just want to throw that out there because we all need our tool belt, right? We all need that box of resources to pull from, because like you said, it's no different than showering or exercising. It's a daily thing we got to keep doing. It's not like we connect with our divine selves and we're just, in our perfection all the time. So, I just wanted to
Thank
shout
you.
out to that.
It was profound for me too, because it was like for a while I could figure out my feelings and things, but until I regulated my nervous system along with the knowledge and the understanding that I had, it was like the rubber wasn't meeting the road.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's where it kind of made a huge difference for me and why it really picked up as one of my favorite tools that I use. So thank you. Thank you for
It's
that.
fantastic. And it was such a popular episode because it was very step-by-step instructional. And so many of my friends were like, I've been tapping all the time now. So
yeah, well, and I mean, I believe afterwards when we did the tapping that we put into my private sessions resource, it was like very personal stuff to you. It was about your own, downfalls in like relationships and things like that. And I think that added vulnerability and humanness really made it an even cooler episode and things because people really got to see more of you through it. And
yeah. And that's definitely a big part of my work is that's another thing. I believe kindness is the key, but also truth. Not many of us feel safe to truly express how we feel and who we are. So I aim to be as transparent as possible because it's kind of, like that Gandhi quote, be the change you want to see.
Right.
If we were more honest with one another, we'd also see big changes in the world. Yeah. But, and a lack of honesty is always going to create separation and problems.
Right. And those things are so important if you're dealing mainly with addiction, recovery, and that kind of stuff for sure, because there's so much taboo and stigma and so many people don't want to share what's going on in their lives or what's really at the heart of how it all got started for them. So making that more transparent and visible and being vulnerable about it, I think is awesome. So thank you for everything that you're doing. And what is your website and your handle on Instagram? I'll put them in the show notes, but I just want to make sure that we say them here too.
Yeah. So my handle is @WomenWaken and my website is womenwaken.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, Whitney. I really loved this conversation and I'm excited to share you with my listeners.
Thank you so much for having me, Theresa. Very excited to be on the show.
Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.